Hello, Internet. Thank you so much for joining us for today's event, Crafted Future Code Redefined. I'm Nick Bornstein, General Manager of the Webby Awards, and it's great to be here with you. This event, which is hosted in partnership with our friends at WP Engine, is part of our Crafted with Code series, where we spotlight the teams behind some of the most interesting and ambitious work happening in websites today. You know, in 2026, AI isn't hypothetical anymore. It's just here. It's in the tools, it's in the workflows, and code is being redefined in real time. We're in a moment of vibe coding where it's never been easier to build, which also makes judgment, taste, and intention more important than ever. But what's most interesting to me is actually it's not how much we can build right now, but it's how much judgment building requires. The projects and teams we're talking about today push boundaries, they experiment with frameworks, they use AI-driven systems, but they also show something else. Innovation works best when there's trust between the internal teams, between agencies and clients, between creative ambition and technical discipline. So today, we'll talk about all that, the balance between experimentation and restraint, speed and thoughtfulness, and what it really means to redefine code right now. Our panelists today are also featured in our Crafted with Code showcase. It's a collection of Webby recognized projects that embody the spirit of experimentation and redefinition. We've actually now hosted several seasons of this program with WP Engine. I imagine we've seen some of you before here in the chat, but this has spanned design, performance, creativity, and this drop is a collection of projects we've been incredibly inspired by and are excited to share with you. We'll actually put those links to the case studies and videos in the chat so you can explore more. But now I am very excited to introduce our panelists. First, we have Ali Lehman, the founder and creative director at Wonderly. Hi, Ali.
Hi, Nick.
We also have Mike Burns, the chief technology officer at Upstatement.
Hi, everyone. Thank you.
And finally, we have Luke Patterson, who is the product manager at WP Engine.
Hey, y'all.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Well, I thought we could kick things off by having each of you tell us who you are, what you're building, and maybe what it feels or what feels different about this moment. Ali, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, so what we focus on at Wonderly is helping our clients create a platform that they own. So when we talk about ownership, we also mean ownership with your audience, being able to talk to them, being able to receive payment from them in a way that feels really transparent. And it's been really amazing to co-create that with our clients directly, ask them what they want because they know their audience and their fans so well. And so it's been really awesome to reflect on this project for the food section, which was for Hannah, who is the founder of the food section. It's a project that is all about food journalism in the South here in the United States. And it was really amazing to work with her on that project and be nominated for a Webby, which was really exciting.
Congratulations. We were just talking that actually everyone on this conversation, while we work in technology, we also are creatives as well, which I think is special. And, you know, Ali, you've been doing this work for quite some time. Does anything feel different about this moment as you're building work?
Yeah, it's been really fun to have conversations about the work that really stands out to people, whether we're talking about what our clients make on social media or how they tackle actually writing the words or crafting a recipe or things like that. I think that in 2026, the general public feels really intrigued and enchanted by something that's made by hand because I think we all use AI and we see it a lot. And so I think that we're all just really perceptive and sensitive to it all. And I think that that's really fun as an artist and a creative.
Yeah. Well, excited to dig in more. Mike, I want to shift over to you. Tell us who you are, what you're building, and also what feels different about building in 2026.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. So I'm Mike Burns. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at Upstatement. So we are a strategic design studio with an editorial mindset. We're a full service digital agency that provides brand, strategy, design, and full stack engineering for clients of all shapes and sizes. The one that was nominated for Webby was with Mozilla working on a website to highlight their work with open source AI community. And so that was a lot of fun. Yeah, I just really excited to be here and was honored to be recognized for that work, doing important work for an important community.
Great. And now, Luke, tell us about yourself.
Hey, also, yeah, I'm Luke Patterson, and I'm a product manager at WP Engine. And what we do at WP Engine is help folks who own and who build websites succeed with those websites and succeed on the web. And so I have a really exciting role here, which is the AI part of all that. And so as AI comes and changes the landscape and gives us new tools to do the things that we do, my job is to make sure that where you host and how you build and the problems that you solve, you have all the right tools in the AI world and within the problem set sometimes that AI has created. And so, yeah, my job is to understand and to build products for folks like Allie and Mike, which is really, really exciting.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure a lot of people in this chat today will have a lot of questions for you, Luke, especially about how to build these systems. Today's conversation is called Code Redefined, right? And I think that was inspired by this idea that we are in this moment of redefinition, reinvention. AI is everywhere. It's changing how we build, design, ship. But more AI doesn't always mean better work. I think we are often finding that the smartest and sort of most excellent experiences are the ones doing it intentionally. I feel like Allie and Mike, you both touched on this, but I'm curious to sort of ask, where does that intentionality show up for you in your work and your process? Mike, maybe we can start with you.
Yeah, I think the biggest place we find it, and when you're working with clients, you get business requirements that always come from the business side of things. And I feel like one of the things that we're really focused on in designing the experience is like what the end user needs and what kind of the community supporting the business needs from them. And so I feel like that's usually the first place we go looking, and especially for Mozilla builders, where it's a product for the developer community, that really grounds everything that follows, is understanding who they are, where they're at, and what they need from the products that we're building.
Allie, what about you? Where's that intention showing up?
Yeah, after seeing this question, I thought about how intention isn't one of our core values, but I feel like it should be now that AI is here. And so for us, I think the start of a project feeling like it has that human touch for our client is really important to build that trust. But I loved what you said, Mike. I think that our clients being able to, they come to us typically with a really strong relationship with their audience, and that intention around what have you had in the past that you feel like you couldn't, it was like making it difficult to connect with your audience. How can we be intentional about improving that and making it feel a little bit more custom for the end user? And so I think that strategy phase of our project is really, really important to where when we design and build, it goes back to that. I always talk about how our strategy deck at the end of that phase feels like accountability, like it keeps us really grounded.
Yeah. And Luke, I imagine intention comes up a lot in your conversations with clients and makers, but how are you factoring that into your process?
It does. And I'm actually just realizing how exciting this conversation is going to be, because we're going to be able to talk about the whole stack, because Allie and Mike are kind of my customers, and then they have customers of their own. So we'll be talking about like the infrastructure all the way up to like the visitors on the web page, and like that encompasses almost the whole web. And so intentionality, and I'll probably be talking about this a lot, there's a technical perspective of what do we build and how do we make sure it's resilient. But almost the more important part is, what do folks need and what problems are we solving? Because we can go build lots of stuff. There's now, especially, there's an infinite amount of stuff of like, hey, Claude, go build a thing while I go drink a beer, and then I'll come back and it's done. And so the price of building what you want is going way down. And so it's becoming much more important to be intentional about what problems am I solving and who am I solving them for? And are they appropriately scoped? And are they like delightful and cheap to use? And does it work all the way up the stack from like the server and our costs on the server, and what we pass through to the costs, and all the way up to the visitor and all out into the world. So
yeah. So what I'm hearing is, while technology costs are decreasing, liquor costs do rise. Love it.
As I age, I think there's a hard limit there.
Sure.
Actually.
Well, I want to talk quickly about the great projects that Ali and Mike were a part of this season. We were thrilled to recognize both of you and your teams at this year's Webbies. Ali, as you mentioned, the food section was nominated in independent publishers in our websites and mobile sites. And it's a really thoughtful evolution of an editorial brand into this sort of fully owned digital home. And our team will put a link to it in the comments as well, just so everyone can see its full breadth. And Mike, as you mentioned, Mozilla Builders nominated in corporate social responsibility, really being able to platform Mozilla at the center of this open source movement, which feels perfect for today's conversation. But starting with you, Ali, in the food section, I think it's so interesting that you built the food section off of Substack. That was sort of a Substack native platform that now uses WordPress, Memberful, Campaign Monitor. What did that ownership unlock? And also, can you tell us a little bit about why that stack, sort of that transition for you and the team?
Yeah, so we build all of our custom membership sites with WordPress and Memberful. Memberful allows us to sync member information to all of the different ways that member receives benefits. So if a client has Discord, a paid podcast, in Hannah's case, who is the founder of the food section, she was already using Campaign Monitor. So we inherited that, and we had no problem using the thing that our clients are really comfortable using in terms of email service providers. And so Memberful really lets us design and build however we want. It's not really dictating or telling us how that membership site is basically served and experienced by the member. We get to build really complementary public parts of the site. And then after someone joins and signs up, they can experience everything that's behind the paywall. We have a lot of flexibility with how much of the membership is teased to someone who's not signed up or logged in. And so we've really enjoyed not really putting bounds or parameters on our clients when we're making the actual experience. Our clients all have really extremely particular and strong brands, and just their presence is really, really apparent. And so not only that, but pairing that with the fact that our clients have total insight into the data behind their members, and then also direct connection through Stripe on that payment data is really, really important. And so really the one thing that we love being able to do after that site experience is set up is now say, how does email then connect into that? And how do you communicate with those people? How do you make sure the emails even get there, into their inbox? There's a lot of different problems to solve. And so we've really liked that. And our clients, they're able to build such amazing businesses through this stack.
Mm-hmm. There is an amazing feature in the food section that's called the potluck feature.
Yeah.
It's great. It surfaces sort of these various and randomized archive stories. Again, highly recommend everyone here go check it out. But why was it important to design for sort of that depth instead of just recency? And what did that look like as you were thinking about that?
Yeah. So in particular for the food section, when someone comes to us with an archive that's already pretty robust, they know and they're aware of how much gets buried. If it's just chronological, if you're constantly putting out new content from even, 6 weeks ago is kind of gone. And so with Hannah, we got to be really experimental with, and if you check out how to browse through different categories, we even show something a reader can browse by mood. So it's are you feeling celebratory? Do you want to be challenged? Do you want to see something delicious? And so I think that feels really, really fun. I think the algorithm now in various places we spend time on the internet, it picks our path most of the time. And I think it's really fun to hand the keys over to the reader if they're feeling adventurous. They don't have to, but they can. Yeah.
I love that. Luke, I'm curious from your perspective, when a brand or, a creator like the food section moves from a hosted platform to a cell phone stack, Are there sort of guidelines or things that have to be true about the infrastructure for that move to work? And Allie, maybe you can also fill in what that was like for you. But Luke, from your perspective, I'm curious.
Yeah, I always I hate it when people come on a podcast and talk their book, but I'm going to try not to do that very much. I know my vest isn't going to help my case here, but I would say the thing that probably should be true is that your self-hosted stack should be better than the one you move from. Mm-hmm. And so the question you should be asking yourself is how does this serve my needs? And in what ways does it serve my business needs too? Because the thing that you want to do is to have your core competency. And that's the thing that you're going to be delivering on to your customers or your clients or whoever. What am I best at? What am I better than anyone else at? And that's the thing that I want to give to the world and hopefully make a little bit of money off of. And so when you're moving from somebody who that's true for them, that's their core competency, you need to have a reason for doing that advances your vision or in some way serves your core goal and your core competency. And so for a lot of folks, they don't, it's not an interesting thing for them. I got to go hire a team. I got to worry about, which version of my SQL should I do? And what kind of security updates do I need to have? In what ways is owning those things and spending money and spending time and spending expertise, which by the way, you're going to be trading off against other things you could be doing in this moment. In what way does that serve you and help you bring your awesome thing that you're doing to life? So it's kind of are you going to make a sandwich from scratch or are you going to make a sandwich from scratch? I'm going to go and harvest the wheat. And no, you're not. But for some folks, the artisanal method, that's the thing they want to bring to the world. And so once again, ask yourself, is this the thing that is serving my business? And if it is, then in some ways it's going to elevate you. And that's the thing that really needs to be true once you move over.
Yeah. Allie, was that sort of the experience you and the team had when you were working with the food section, I imagine?
Yeah, I think Hannah was really excited to have more of those responsibilities. She was really excited to, you talked about the sandwich, Luke, which is a way better analogy to what I was going to say is it's do you want to rent your apartment and not really have to worry about some of the things that a homeowner does? When you own a home, when the roof is broken, the bill is going to come to you. And so the feeling of, I think, responsibility and understanding what you're going to need to have intention about is really, really important. And so we spend a decent amount of time almost untangling. This is what this platform that sort of did it all for you was doing. And here's where you're going to have to come in and be that homeowner. But here's all the other ways that you can make something better. Like you said, Luke, why not make it better if you're going to re-platform? Because it's a big project.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And congrats again, Allie. It's such a special project. Mike, I want to jump over to you and talk a bit about your project, Mozilla Builders. You had said that you had basically 6 weeks to go from a delightfully vague brief, which I love, to this live MVP. What was the first decision that made that timeline feel achievable? And maybe walk us through that process.
Yeah. Well, first of all, delightfully vague describes a lot of the projects that clients bring to us. And I think that we see that as a feature, not a bug. We like to be able to co-create not just the execution at the end, but something that is more foundational at the beginning. I feel like Allie was talking about it with the way she described her strategy deck. We feel the same way. I think the first decision, I'll talk about two. The first decision was established during the sales process, which was a hard deadline. And I love constraints. And for this one, Mozilla Builders, the brief was vague, but the program existed. It had already started. It's essentially an accelerator program to support individuals in the community that were working on open source LLM projects. So that already existed. There was a space primarily in Discord and GitHub. And through the accelerator program, it kind of culminates in a demo day experience where they all get together and show the work that when it was sponsored by Mozilla. And so we had to work backwards from that to figure out what exactly do we need to build and how are we going to build it. So that, having that deadline kept the entire team focused. And I'll also say that we had an incredible team at Mozilla who was really focused on, getting the strategy right as quickly as possible so that we could stand up an MVP experience, and definitely couldn't have done it without their expertise and their understanding of the community. I think more tactically, which gets at some of the stuff that Luke was talking about, the decision, once we had established that, this isn't going to be a tool, it isn't going to be like a new social media product, it's going to be more of an editorial platform. We quickly worked with the Mozilla team to make the decision to build it as a standalone experience that was decoupled from the rest of the Mozilla.org infrastructure so that we could limit dependencies on their team. And that was another thing that gave us kind of a green field that we could iterate in.
You've also said that you used or chose more of like a boring technology. And, I'm curious why the restraint felt like the right strategy, especially for this sort of AI focused or AI community driven platform.
Yeah. Boring technology is definitely a drum that I beat often. I did not invent it. I think it came out of Etsy and some of their kind of early learnings in large scale product development. But I think there's a lot of weight there that applies in our context as well. So just to paraphrase it, I think boring technology is predictable, it's ubiquitous, and it's well understood and supported by the community. And I think those are all things that you want when it comes to your infrastructure. And you said AI focused platform, which is true, but if I twist it a little bit, I'll say that it's AI focused content rather than a platform. If what we were building was something that was leveraging AI functionality, we'd probably take a different approach. But for this one, the designed experience was unique. I think there was a lot of intention in how we kind of built on top of the Mozilla brand and made that community stand out in a different way. But I think the underlying needs of publishing content and kind of curating the best of the Mozilla Builders program is a relatively understood deliverable in terms of the technologies that are needed. And so I think WordPress and WP Engine are built for that. And that made the build process smooth and predictable.
Well, and you also built it to withstand unpredictable attention as well. Yep. What mattered most architecturally to make sure it wouldn't break?
Yeah, I feel like Luke could probably speak to this more than I can, but definitely from an infrastructure level, like performance and security are the two things that are most important, especially with this sort of a site. And so that's, again, boring technology, well established. Like WP Engine does that, we can focus on other things. But beyond that, I think there's also workflow efficiencies that are really, really important when you're on a tight timeline. And I think, knowing that you can deploy changes quickly without, taking down the site, making sure that you've got good visibility in terms of how the infrastructure is performing, if there's any issues that are popping up, that you can quickly diagnose what it is so that you can fix it. I think those are the things that are most important for us.
Yeah. Luke, do you have a thought around sort of how to make these sort of architectural decisions to ensure there's no breakage and sort of think about that performance?
Yeah, that's really hard, right? And so typically that's why you would say, we want some experts in a situation whereby I run a Super Bowl ad. And so I need to be able to have my website perform just as good as it does on a normal day as it does like right after that Super Bowl ad. Or, unexpectedly, I hit the front page of Reddit today and I don't want my site to go down. Underneath those wants, there's a lot of technical things that need to be true for that to happen. And so either you're an expert in that space and you can do that, or like it behooves your business and your customers and your use case to hand that off to somebody who's like, yes, we're experts in this and we can solve that problem for you. And so just, knowing the needs of your business and your customers, like, hey, we tend to get crazy social spikes. We know that we're going to run an ad at this time. There's experts in technology that can help you do those things. And you just need to understand, are those folks on my team? are those folks somewhere else? And we can kind of just offload these concerns. I don't know how much folks want to learn about like the technology stack and, you know, how we use, but yeah, just suffice to say that like it's a deep, difficult technical problem on the internet. And so confidence is important either way. Confidence in the folks that you have on your team, or confidence in a partner that you're going to hand that off to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an important place for that judgment that you're talking about, Nick.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, Luke, I think there's actually quite a few folks in the chat who probably would love to know that stack. So maybe we can, if any of you have questions, you know, please feel free to put them in the chat and we can get to them in a bit. But I think it's really important to note that both of your projects, and a lot of the work, of course, Luke, that you work on too, are built around real communities. I'm curious to ask each of you, you know, how do you tell the difference between something that's really resonating with people and something that's maybe just generating traffic? You know, Luke, maybe you can kick us off on this one.
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, so there's a technical answer and then there's a more people-focused answer, and they kind of have to go together. And so, of course, you can look at stuff like, okay, traffic came to my page, and then you want to know, like, what did this person do? You want to know it's not a bot. You want to know, okay, this is a real person. And so what did they do? And maybe they searched for something. And when they're searching for something, that's a signal of intent. They're going to like type in the thing that they want. And so you need to make sure, okay, I'm going to give it to them. And then you're going to get some results and they're going to click one. And so they're telegraphing their intent. Oh, here's the thing I want to see. And then they're engaging by clicking on the thing. And then once they're on the page, you can say like, how long did they spend on the page? Is there like some sort of call to action on the page that like, oh, if they engage with this, I know that they found the content helpful. Maybe it's a reach out or like book a session or buy a thing. And so that's kind of like the conversion moment. It's like the aha moment for your visitor. And, you know, it's the, okay, I've served their need moment for you. But, you know, for like content in particular, or even for like, you know, products or reach out, like you want to know, like for the human, like, did this serve their need? And so in a community, happily, there's lots of ways to engage. So like on social or in your Discord channel or like in a comment or like, oh, they reached out to support because my product broke. So like there's dashboards you can build. They point to something. Something's always a person. And so you're always going to want to like find a way to just go out and talk to them and figure out like, hey, for this thing, like did it do the thing you wanted? Did it do the thing I expected it to do? And so you kind of need to come at it from both sides. But at the end of the day, like we build technology for people, not technology for technology.
Yeah.
Until Skynet takes over, then we're out of the equation at that point.
Well, Ali, what about you? What are sort of signals that tell you that a community is really engaged, especially knowing that you have such a sort of robust community with the product that you just worked on?
Yeah, I loved everything you said, Luke. I also have a newsletter about fandom and how that interacts with business. And so I jotted down a few other ideas. We usually have a suggestion box within our clients' membership. So after someone joins, they can make a suggestion. I think if they feel like they have the ability to impact the content and what they want to see there, that's really, really powerful. It starts to feel like an actual community and not just a membership that's being like served. We also, I believe a membership specifically around community is more powerful when people can meet each other. So I think there's proven facts that if you meet someone within the first couple of days, you're less likely to leave because you feel like it's your kind of interactions are growing stronger and you're not just only depending on the host of the community. And we try to really incorporate kind of a way to welcome and onboard someone. So after someone joins, kind of giving them a sense of what's available to them through email, but also kind of that post-purchase experience. But I think, again, repurposing content, reposting, are you getting DMs? Are you getting email replies? Those things are really, really powerful. It sort of proves that human action, and I think is what we're all looking for.
By the way, Ali's newsletter is called Huge Fan Club, and I highly recommend everyone check it out. It's awesome. But it's clear you have such a sense of sort of how to engage community. Any other sort of fun facts about the newsletter you can share with us about what you've learned about fandoms as it
Oh
relates
gosh. Fans are so powerful. Fans are so powerful. So I think if you can invest in them, I think that's what will carry you through. What we all do as creators or creative people or writers is really great. And when you start to create that fandom, it's awesome. But at some point, I think it becomes more powerful even than you alone. And so I think that when it's done well and in a healthy way, it's just such a powerful way to keep what you love doing alive. Yeah.
Thank you. And then, finally, I'd love to hear, Mike, what you sort of are seeing in terms of like resonating versus generating traffic and building that community.
Yeah, I mean, agreeing with everything that Luke and Ali are saying. I think the only thing I might add is that I feel like the process of understanding community response and like performance starts at the very beginning before you've launched anything. And that takes a number of different forms, but I do think the one that is most effective in our like strategy process is user testing and talking to real users of the platform, and just really understanding the different audiences that you're trying to reach and what they need. And then there's a process of, kind of sharing back with clients. This is what we heard from them. We have to balance those obviously with business goals, but like, what are the key metrics that we are kind of monitoring and agreeing on as like, these are the things that if they produce this result, we call this project a success. And I think defining those before you launch is an important part, and then making sure that you have the infrastructure to monitor it. For Mozilla builders, like we just had such an incredible kind of community liaison that was deep into that community and really gave us that user research without us having to go deep into it ourselves. And then we had immediately a place that we could go once it was published to say, is it working? Is it getting you what you need? And I think that's definitely the most direct form of feedback.
Yeah. Well, I want to shift now sort of from these products to process, especially as it relates to AI, which is, I think, on everyone's mind. I'd love to go down the line and ask each of you, how is AI changing how you and your teams are actually working? Ali, why don't we start with you?
Yeah. So I feel like we are able to be so much more present in meetings because of AI note takers. It's something that's so subtle, but the ability to not need to focus our attention between listening and taking notes down or making sure that someone is just like transcribing it completely. Once we have that transcript, I feel like we can then recall so much. We can, like you said, Mike, the ability to, when we work with a client, we have something called a listening tour, and it's where we talk to customers, teammates of our clients, things like that. To be able to recall every single word written it's such a simple thing, but then actually call out some of those things using AI is really amazing. I feel like it leans into how can we be abundant with our time. And so you talked about that, Luke, like if we can do this, then what can we do with the time saved? And I think it's really important, leading my team, I want to be really intentional with what we're doing with that time saved and making sure that the creativity and intention can happen while we save time, not having to, look at our notes that make no sense 2 weeks later.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, Ali. This season, the Webby Awards did a presentation called the Webby Talk, and we sort of talk about how we've been seeing brands, organizations, technologists use AI in ways that build trust. And we talk a lot about utility as sort of a really helpful way to build trust in this ecosystem. And one of our examples is actually Notion's AI assistant, which is a note taker. And we share that with the community often, that it's moments like that that allow for that utility to be offered and to build that trust. So I'm glad to hear that you are living that. What is your preferred note taker?
We use Fireflies. Cool. So that joins all of our meetings and summarizes it. We can give a summary to our clients. There's a lot of settings within that. And it's always there. Yeah.
Mike, what about you? How is AI changing how you and your teams are working?
Not much. I'm just kidding. I mean, that one is a huge one. And I think in general, I look for the things where the promise of AI is like maximizing time spent on the the human factors of a project. And so I'm always looking for that and how we're using it. And I think sometimes it can be like you've seen maybe studies about like false productivity, where it's like, oh, if I generate all of this code, then I'm doing a good job. But it's like, but what is that code actually doing? And is it solving the problem? So I feel like I'm always trying to find the thing that is behind, you know, on social media, it's really big, and it's like the extremes of what AI is doing. Even like the initial release of GPT-4 was like, here's a website from a postcard, and I feel like that's what everyone sees, and they're, you know, just like, oh, that's crazy. But I think in reality, when you've been doing this for longer than 3 years, you realize that it's not solving a problem without creating new ones. And for us, balancing the speed and quality has been the most interesting space. And I'll give one example. I think there's different modalities of working with AI. And when I'm thinking about development, there's like an exploration and then like a production implementation. And a very common use case for us is using it for like very rapid exploration. So we were doing a project with a client recently where we were trying to identify a product concept with some, again, very vague brief. And we're able to, with the assistance of Claude Code, do 27 different concepts that were anchored to a human written brief in terms of like the, you know, the specific characteristics that we needed a product to deliver on. And so the ability to get all of those ideas out into the world and into like a high fidelity format that a client can process and react to is really, really powerful. And it takes time for humans to process that much information and be like, okay, but of all these ideas, like where do we actually need to focus? And I feel like that's the part where if we're going to speed up code development, we also need to think about how the rest of the process morphs around that. And I feel like that's a place where we've been learning a lot and having a lot of fun.
We will definitely get to vibe coding. I want to talk all about that in just a bit. But I just want to end up with Luke and just kind of understand a little bit how AI sounds like, and I know that you are very focused on AI in your work. And I'm curious how you're seeing teams really activate and use it.
Yeah, I mean, +1 to Allie and to Mike, like being able to have a second brain and like Slack conversations get pushed to my notes app and the Zoom conversations get pushed to my notes app. And then I can connect Claude and ask it questions about, hey, what was the thing we said on that time about this thing, and just kind of have it come back. That's huge. Claude Code, writing code and building software, I mean, it's really good. And it's been an absolute game changer for our engineers. But I guess maybe from kind of a different perspective, it's also created kind of equal on both sides of like churn and opportunity. So definitely creates opportunities in kind of like, hey, we can build things a little bit faster, or maybe we can build them like a little bit more delightfully or in a way we couldn't before. And so that's really nice. So there are tools to solve existing problems. I think for folks that make websites and have an online presence, like the problems and their needs, they're kind of the same almost. I'll talk about a notable example in a second. But right, like now we have more tools to go and solve those problems and to help folks solve those problems. So like, I need to sell some stuff. I need folks to be aware of my brand. I'm gonna have content that I want people to engage with. Right, like these are kind of the perennial needs of an online presence, and so we have more tools at our disposal to help these needs get served. One notable example is AI has changed the I need people to get to my website problem. So that's created a problem for a lot of folks who, their livelihoods depend by and large on a web presence. Their traffic, information is getting summarized in ChatGPT or in Google, and people aren't coming to the website anymore, or they're not getting summarized at all. And so it's a drop in traffic. And, in many cases, it can be like, this is a real threat to my livelihood and like the way I keep my kids in school and a roof over my head. And so, we have new tools available to solve this problem, but it's also like creating a new paradigm that, we need to find some way to adapt to. And so things like that, sure, they're like opportunities from a business sense, but it also just kind of sucks. And so we have to like find a way to deal with it. But at the same time, like, there's also this whole new bevy of tools at our disposal, like for problems old and new, to go and try and address them in like creative ways and, ways that we might not have been able to do so before.
Yeah. Well, I think this dovetails really nicely into sort of what we're all talking about, which is, in this moment of vibe coding, in this moment where, AI has made things easier than ever to build, it still feels like judgment, creativity, Ali, you mentioned this early on, sort of that craft is still so important. And I do want to ask, as building becomes more accessible, what does still require judgment? How can we sort of think about those elements that are beneficial outside of AI, maybe? I see you all nodding. So, maybe Mike, I can pass it to you first.
Yeah, I think in a word, focus is probably the most important thing, where when you can build every feature quickly, like it's very easy to just, throw everything at the wall and create a really an experience that lacks cohesion and intention. And so I think that is one place where the judgment and the experience of, not just building software, but understanding how software is used and, how it is supported. Those all require not just the same amount of discipline and decision making, but more when you're able to produce code faster. I was talking a minute ago about like bringing clients along is a new problem that is created by the pace of development. And I think the last thing I would say, which gets maybe a little bit looped to some of the more existential parts of it, is knowing when to go slow. And like, there may be a future soon when we don't code anymore, but we're not there yet. And therefore, learning the fundamentals of code and how stuff works is still something that needs to be part of education as well as the industry. So thinking about what a junior engineering role looks like in this day and age is really, really important.
Mm-hmm. Ali, what about you? I think a lot about too what you do. I mean, there's so much taste involved, and I'm curious, maybe when there is that sort of very editorial, very taste-driven sensibility, how do you think about sort of that judgment and sort of that craft?
Yeah. So our clients come to us really loving the design that we can create. So what you talked about with taste, I think, is really important. My design team, me included, are all artists. We illustrate, we're craft enthusiasts. We like making things with our hands. And so the branding we produce and kind of co-create with our clients is, in my opinion, imperfect in a way that only a human can make. I remember reading a quote from a designer, I think it was on Threads, but it was about how those imperfections are really difficult right now for AI to replicate because it takes a human to know how to properly break rules. I think we see it breaking rules, but it looks weird. It doesn't feel correct. We're just like, I don't think so. But I loved what you said, Mike, about bringing your clients on the journey. So I think it's really powerful for our clients to experience what it feels like for someone to make something custom for them. And I'm even talking about like visually what it looks like. But I think that experience of working through feedback, feeling heard, seeing it evolve takes time. And I really do believe our clients need the time to love it. They need to feel like they had a few weeks. And so I think AI, of course, can give you a lot of visual starting points, but I guarantee the next day you're like, I don't know if I love it anymore. And it takes time to really essentially kind of fall in love and feel like it's yours. So I think that that's really important.
Well, you also, I think what you're getting at too reminds me of this idea of like legacy, like having something that feels like it can last and not just launch. And, Luke, I think as we're talking about, like the barrier to building something has just dropped, immensely. Anyone can build something, but what does infrastructure now need to do maybe differently to support this, work that Ali is maybe talking about, work that's meant to last and not just launch?
Yeah, I mean, so the infrastructure, like, we really hope is the boring part. And so what we want is, so AIs, it's just going to get better, right? It's just going to keep getting better and better. And we don't know if there's any new laws that are going to say, oh, it may reach, the peak of its asymptote, like up here. We don't know anything like that yet. And so I think we can safely assume that for the foreseeable future, it's just going to start getting better. And what you want out of your infrastructure is, as the AI gets better, the thing you've built and the infrastructure you've built upon it gets better with the AI. And so you don't have to keep up, basically. Oh, Claude launched a new model and I have to refactor my thing, or, I have to write some code or do some things to catch up. No, you want infrastructure that is going to scale with your models, or maybe you don't have to worry about the models at all. So like, say there's things out there called like AI gateways. And so these are gateways where, Mike's going to say, I don't know which model I'm going to be using. And so I'm going to pay for a service that offers me all of them. And I just get a bill at the end of the month. I don't have to have a separate OpenAI account, a separate Gemini account, a separate Claude account. No, it's good. So you want to build infrastructure like that. So when you say, oh, now this Claude model is better than this OpenAI model, I just change an environment variable, and my AI gateway vendor, it switches it out for me. And maybe I'm getting some like cost benefits too, because they get bulk discounts, things like that. And so how you want to think is, what are the ways in which the thing I've built or the thing I do, it gets better as AI gets better, with very, very low or hopefully no switching costs for me. And so that's going to mean different things for different people. But like, that's the paradigm that I would, hope folks think about this in.
Yeah. Well, do you feel like, Luke, there's something that you talk about infrastructure, but is there something that brands or organization or agencies should really prioritize now, knowing that this technology is here and ways that they can sort of scale intelligently?
I'd say focus on your users first. And so the infrastructure is a tool that's going to serve some need, yours and hopefully eventually your customers too. And so the second thing after that is going to be trust. And so, like I mentioned earlier, like, you're going to have internal experts in this stuff, and they're going to be your internal experts because you trust them very much. And then if it's something that you don't know a lot about or don't want to have to be concerned about, right? Like, find somebody who you trust who's going to kind of make these decisions for you. And so, because you just don't want to have to. And so I think that's, there's certainly a human to human element in there, but yeah, I mean, it's hard to talk about particulars because everybody's going to be different, but I would say, like, focus on the things you need and the things that you're good at, and then find folks and vendors you trust for the rest of the stuff. Because, like, the technology should be boring. The technology, I mean, unless you're building software, right? These technology, and it is certain, like, WP Engine has vendors too. Like, there's certain parts of the stack that, to go back to our lovely sandwich metaphor, like, there's a certain point, even if I'm like smoking my own brisket, which we do a lot in Texas, there's a certain point, like, I'm not going to go, I don't have any chickens. I can't make the mayo from scratch. So there's always going to be a point where you're going to have to select a vendor. So drawing that line extremely intentionally, like, that's the thing I want folks to be thinking about rather than any particular technology choice. Cause there's too many of them.
God, I'm hungry after that analogy. I will say we have sort of, we're rounding out. I've maybe just a couple more questions for our panelists, but for those of you here with us today, please, go ahead and ask your questions in the comment section. We would love to ask this great panel group anything. We'll save a little bit of time at the end for that. So I just want to remind folks to get your comments or questions in. I think we've talked a bit about this idea of legacy, something that is built to last. I'd love to ask you, Mike, first, if you are building something today that needs to last, what's a decision that matters most? What is something that you either bring up to your team or to your client in sort of building that sort of more sustainable product?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is ownership. and just being clear with like what roles different people play in supporting that product, and having a plan for what happens, whether it's traffic spike, security incident, like blowing up on social media. I think it all comes back to ownership, and again, that's a place where AI can help with incident response and different aspects of supporting a platform, but ultimately the product is something that is owned by a team, and making sure that the team knows what the stack is and how to maintain it is definitely the most important part of every technology decision we make.
Yeah. I love that ownership. That's a really interesting thing. Allie, what about you? What's a decision that matters most in sort of building an experience that lasts?
Yeah, I agree with you, Mike. I think the path towards what some people might call, but I've also mentioned it or referred to it as that intimacy channel, making sure that you have direct connection with your audience and fans. I think that not all customers are fans or vice versa, but this idea that you can continue to invest and build that audience and that group of people. I think that when they then, if we're thinking of our clients who have memberships and virtual communities that sometimes span into real life, that I think it's stronger when the people inside are connected to each other. I think that sort of rounds out that really strong fandom. And so I think that those people will go with you to a different platform. They will go with you when you change your tech stack. When you change your branding, they'll hear from you. And something that Hannah did from the food section was explained in a really nice post on Substack. This is why I'm leaving and this is what I'm creating. And it was amazing to see all of her readers comment about that plan before it even happened. And to me, that feels like respect and an understanding of who's out there, like supporting your work.
Yeah. I really love both of those: ownership, intimacy. Luke, what about you?
Yeah, so we talked a little bit about prioritization earlier, and so I think it kind of goes to this question too. So built to last, and why do we build the things that we build, and why do we build them right now? We think a lot about win-win-win situations. So it's a win for our customers, it's a win for our business, and it's a win for like the community or the open web. And another way to think about that last one is like it's just kind of the right thing to do. And so when you're thinking about things that are built to last and that will survive or like leave legacy, like Allie was talking about, what's right for your customers or your users because you talk to them all the time. If you talk to them every single day, you're just going to kind of know what they need, and that's an easy decision. Same with what's good for the business, right? If you understand what's going on and what success looks like and what your goals are, and you're staying close to the needs of the business, that's going to be an easy decision. And then, for the last one, there's just like that little voice in the back of your head that tells you like the right thing to do. And then that's that other part, right? And so those three things, I think if you can find ways that are like urgent and important and check all those three boxes, when you go out and do it, those are the things that are really going to be built to last.
Yeah. I love it. We are all today redefining code, and I so appreciate these fantastic insights. I would now love to go to the chat, see what some of the folks are saying. I see one question here from Chloe. What's one thing you've all seen in the last 6 months that have made you genuinely optimistic about the future of the web? Oh, I love this question. What brings you optimism in this time of rapid change and evolution? Anyone feel free to dive in.
It's tough. There's, like we said earlier, like there's some churn and there's some problems being created and there's worry, uncertainty, but there's also like I hesitate to call it opportunity, but like there's a lot of stuff going on, and that we've talked a lot about on this panel, people and creating. I can create time and space for people, but even like some of the biggest worries folks have about AI point back to like people, like what's going to happen to us, what's going to happen to our jobs, what's going to happen to our time, what's going to happen to like the way I make money. And the fact that we are having those conversations and that's our focus gives me a lot of hope that like we're going to go and solve that stuff, as opposed to the alternative, which I mean, I'm a technologist. I build software all day. I explore, you can tell by my vest that I explore economic opportunities to write software and bring it into the world and make money. But like, I never hear people talking about like, oh man, these are great opportunities to use AI to replace sex. Those, you almost never really hear that stuff. Things I hear are like, who are the people we need to solve problems for? Who are the folks experiencing like less traffic to their website, and how do we help them get traffic to their website? And so that's the thing that gives me optimism. Is like, it is scary, yeah, but you know, look at what the conversations you're having every day and what the people that surround you are doing every day. That's the thing that I think should give folks hope.
Yeah. I could build on that really quickly and just say that, you know, it has been a wild 4 years, especially for developers. And what I've observed in the last like 3 months has been what felt like was just pendulum swings all over the place, starting to actually like settle in this area of like, okay, now it's here. We're out of this like experimental, like just figuring out what's going on phase, and actually like you can just feel people transitioning to more of a like stability phase, and like where are the primitives of this technology and how can we build on top of them, as opposed to feeling like every press release from OpenAI or Anthropic is like completely changing the game. So I feel like the maturity that I'm starting to see is really, really creating genuine optimism. And in its place, it's like, if the worry goes out, then you're more focused on some of the opportunities and some of the fun aspects. I would say developers on my team have been having the most fun, some of whom have been, you know, developing for 20, 25 years. And it feels like they're going back to that early childhood experience of the first time that, you know, you were able to get an HTML page up or whatever. And that, you know, especially as a parent, is something that gets me really excited.
Yeah, and I would add, our clients are able to create such a powerful revenue stream for themselves through the tools that they can take on in a way that allows them to stand out. So making 6 to 7 figures a year is very, very life-changing for families for their own legacy. And it's typically community funded. So our clients are able to get out of the more traditional advertising systems and structures that they've always sort of had to depend on. It reminds me of back when, you know, blogging became a huge thing and people started to monetize on that. It feels like that all over again in a very different way.
Yeah. I did want to ask one other question, Luke, and this might be our last question, but I'm curious for all of your thoughts. You know, I think you brought up something really interesting about that idea of, you know, this conversation about web traffic. You know, what does that now look like in this ecosystem? And you had mentioned, obviously, WP Engine has tools, and but I'm curious, maybe just big picture, how you are thinking about sort of AI's now relationship to this idea of traffic, and what some solutions might be, or sort of how we need to be thinking about that in this new era.
This is a big one. And it's like
in our final like 90 seconds, but I'm curious for your quick thought on it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So it's a big thing, and it's top of everybody's mind. So I can't tell you how many folks I've talked to that are like, hey, my GA traffic dashboard is a bloodbath right now, and it's all bots that are using up my bandwidth, and it's no people that are coming in and buying the thing. Like, oh my God, what do I do? I think for a lot of folks, like, that's really scary, because again, like, their livelihoods depend on their web presence. So let's get pretty tactical of things you can do like today. So first of all, always is like triage. So you want to know what's going on. So there's folks like Ahrefs out there who are going to offer you products that say, what's the traffic coming to my website? Who's the bots? Who's the people? Where are they going? Down to stuff like keywords, performance, like traditional SEO. So step one, triage, understand, you know, Google Analytics, there's tools to visualize these things. So get the data, understand what's going on with your website, right? And that includes up to like, am I being cited? Am I not being cited? How much am I being cited? All right, the next layer is there's probably some really brilliant problem solvers at your company, or there's folks at like full service agencies that you can hire to say, all right, now that you understand what's going on, what ought you do? So you're going to pinpoint your top priorities for your business. And then you're going to say, here's the things I need to do to address 1, 2, 3 concerns that this data has showed me. All right, so you've made decisions about what you'll do about the data that you saw to address the problems that you understand as a business person. And then there's the solutions. So the solutions may be stuff like the data structure of your web page and like how your headings look and how the keywords appear. And, you know, do you surface markdown, or what does your JSON LD look like? These are ways to increase citations. And so you're going to treat it as an experiment. You're going to say, okay, I've seen the problem. I've come up with a plan, the solution. Now I need to implement the solution. There's LLM tools that can rewrite your markup, your markdown, whatever, do your structure. So I'd encourage folks to give those things a try. And then you're going to set up a feedback loop and you're say, did that work? There's also like companies and solutions and products and agencies that'll run that whole process for you. And I've met a lot of brilliant ones and they're out there. But it's still kind of like the SEO, AEO, GEO. It's a very experimental space, but very tactically, I would say make that your playbook. Figure out what's going on, decide what you want to do about it, do the thing, maybe use Cloud Code to help you do the thing, and treat it as an experiment and see if it works. And then run it again.
Thank you. That was an amazing 30-second, 60-second sort of triage lesson. I'm looking at Riley's sort of hilarious comment in the chat. But I just want to thank all of you so very much for being here today. You know, Mike, Ali, for creating such Webby, wonderful, recognized work. Also for Luke and our partners at WP Engine for bringing this to life. Thank you so much for being here and for these phenomenal insights. If any of you here today are interested in learning more about the Webby Awards or this program, we are also announcing nominees for the 38th Annual Webby Awards on March 31st. So you can always head to webbyawards.com or follow us on social. And if you're not already, be sure to follow the Webbies and our fantastic panelists here today to keep up with their work. And until then, we will see you all on the internet. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, y'all.